Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, happy feet on an angry user. Alcohol can improve nearly any tech support call. Shorty engineers for $35 a call. Some coworkers just want to watch the board burn. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Happy feet on an angry user. So, many years ago when I had a lot more hair, I had a job as the tech support guy for 3 states' offices of a national nonprofit. Those of you who have been breathlessly following my tales would recognize this as the nonprofit with all the dead laptops that I embarrassed my boss to replace. I lived in the middle state and would generally hit the western neighbor state every Tuesday, the eastern neighbor every Thursday. After the first few visits, where I did inventory, found out which computers were being used and which ones were just acting as bulky, low-powered space heaters, etc., a site visit would take 3 hours if I had no coffee. If I pushed, I could do the backups, check each user for complaints, and be back on the road in just over an hour. The office manager of the western state never liked me. Maybe I looked like her ex-husband, I don't know, but she was just short of insulting on the phone and not much better in person. Whatever, I don't have to love my users, I just have to keep them doing non-profit things. I'll call her Clara, since that was not her name. Clara called one Monday, steaming mad. "You broke my computer." I asked, "I'm sorry, why didn't you tell me Tuesday before I left?" "Not then, just now." I was about 100 miles away from her computer, that's 160 kilometers for more civilized folks. My resume is pretty good but carefully avoids claiming that I can telekinetically break a computer from such distance. Our nonprofit was proudly up to date with computers and infrastructure that would have been current 20 years before this story. No remote management of any sort. So I was a bit mystified. Over the next few minutes I gleaned that she had been working on a mainframe session. Mainframe was at national office, well outside of my power, and was working for others in her office. Suddenly the mainframe window went blank, and it was obviously my fault. Clara had powered past angry, was comfortably in the enraged part of the dial, and was building towards homicidal. I spent several very pleasant minutes trying to walk her through troubleshooting before reporting to my boss that I was driving one state over to fix whatever this problem was as quickly as possible. 2 hours of driving, listening to the radio, thinking happy thoughts, and really not looking forward to dealing with Clara. Clara's PC passed all the quick tests. It was running, temp was fine, no obvious virus activity. No network. The network cable was unplugged at the wall. No, it was yanked out of the wall, with the handy little tab broken off. I had a very vivid mental picture of Clara having done this so that she could use it to garrote me, but a more likely story was that it had gotten kicked loose. I replaced it, tucked the new one right up against the wall, verified network, and had her try it. She grunted something that could have been gratitude and was more likely disappointment at the anticlimactic end, and she returned to work. I did my western state chores. I was here, might as well get more than 6 minutes of work in to justify half a day on the road, then returned home. The next morning, I had 4 increasingly vitriolic voicemails from Clara. It was broken again, how useless could I be to not be able to make it last more than a day, etc. I didn't bother to call, just got in my car. The cable was yanked loose again. This time I taped it down. I only had masking tape, but it should work, right? I went home. Voicemail was waiting for me when I got there. This was in the days when only drug dealers and the like had cell phones. I turned around and drove back. The cable was, of course, out of the socket, but the tape also looked like somebody had been tap dancing on it. Clara had happy feet. She didn't realize that her feet ran about 5 miles a day while she was at her desk. Nervous energy, I guess. Maybe sublimating her towering rage. I showed her what had happened, how to plug the cable back in, and where I had stashed 3 spare cables. If the wall weren't concrete, I would have stapled the cable out of reach, but the office layout didn't give me many options. She was not interested in rearranging her office in any way. I drove home and didn't stop at the office. I didn't want to see that voicemail light. It was waiting for me the next morning. I picked up my headset like I was grabbing a snake of unknown species, and listened to her voicemails. I longed for the good old days when other people left me voicemail, and seldom disparaged my skills, intelligence, education and character. I called her. After a pleasant few minutes discussing my many shortcomings, I asked her to look at the network cable. It's plugged in. This is something else. 2 more hours driving up. The cable was unplugged. I stared directly in her eyes, plugged it in, and left. I hadn't said a word. I drove to a local hardware store and bought a hot glue gun. I then used 4 sticks of hot glue, securing it tightly to the wall. The cable didn't touch the floor, and there was, in fact, no cable not covered with glue from the outlet to behind the computer. Never heard from her again. My mileage reimbursement for all the driving came to within about $10 of my bi-weekly salary check that pay cycle. Alcohol can improve nearly any tech support call. This story is more about the team I worked with than about any particular user or tech problem. Long ago, in a land about 40 miles south of here, I worked tech support for a small struggling company. We had a program that helped small nonprofits thank their donors and cultivate them for future donations. The job was fun because the users tended to be earnest and polite. Also, it felt good to be helping their causes. On any given day, we would be helping feed the homeless, maintain libraries in poor cities, keep domestic abuse shelters open. Much more rewarding than just helping a middle manager grunt out another PowerPoint slide. For Christmas, the tech support department got a small, fake, Christmas tree. We made a field trip across the street to the liquor store, and everybody bought 3 or 4 shot bottles, which we hung on the tree with paper clips. I also put a model train running around the tree, with a few hopper cars full of shot bottles. We planned to use it as a sort of advent calendar. On the Friday before Christmas, we planned to close the phones at noon so that we could have a Yankee swap and party. I got a call at 11:50, to the general mirth of the rest of the team. So I sat in the tech support cube farm, with only my coffee, and a very earnest, but completely non-technical user for company. I could hear the CEO talking about the profit-sharing check we would be getting that quarter, which was about $6 each that time. I did say we were struggling, right? 10 minutes into the call, with the user having finally explained her problem, mail merge, which was one of our most popular long call, the whole tech support team wandered back, holding drinks. A few of them read over my shoulder to see if it was an interesting call or one that I would need help for. 2 of them stopped at the tree, plucked 2 bottles of Irish cream, then took my coffee away, and topped it up with the Baileys. Irish cream has a way of improving a dull tech support call. About 10 minutes later, as the user and I were getting her letter merged, there was a big cheer from the CAF. I thought idly that it was well timed, since my caller was finally starting to get it. She asked what the sound had been. I explained that the Christmas party was going on. She apologized for keeping me from the party. I took a big sip of my fortified coffee and assured her that I would catch up with them soon. After the call, I joined everyone in the CAF and we had the Yankee swap. Every gift was a bottle of alcohol except for one S*X toy. Man, I miss that place. Shorty engineers for $35 a call. I'm right now self-employed in tech support, and I really like handling end users. Must be a masochistic drive or my liking for Jason E. Street talks about making the user part of your security and IT team instead of an enemy. That means I usually get calls from sweet old ladies trying to find the right start into the digital world, or some people who just can't get stuff to work and want to be treated with honesty and fairness. This thing happened a few years ago. The main people in this story are IT firm, a professional company with several IT engineers on roll call for any and every issue. For a price. Me. The self-employed idiot with way too much forbidden knowledge according to the BOF H. Secretaries A through C, although a bit slow when it comes to computers, absolutely great people. This all happens in a company that helps people get through mentally stressful times, but that's more of a personal issue for me. As per my weekly appointment, one of the secretaries pulls me aside. Sika, I know, you're here for other issues, but we've pulled together. Could you help us get some IT things set up while the boss is not here? Me. Sure. But don't you have a professional IT firm doing this? Sika, yes we do, but they charge €35 for the first call and booking an appointment, which may be 2 weeks away. Just don't let the boss know, and we can work in peace. I know that company, and I loathe it. 2 weeks ago they sold an ex-colleague a 12-year-old laptop with the note that Microsoft puts old manufacturing dates under laptops to sell more Windows licenses. So yeah, competence and honesty aren't their strongest suits. They also refused the refund. Me, alright, what's the issue? Sika, I can't access the network share with all the customer data. SECB, I can't get into the mail account I was associated. And SECC, the IT firm wasn't able to connect this printer in the past 5 years to my workstation. Maybe. I gain entry into the holy room, the secretary office. Here decisions are made, who gets how much budget, who gets to see whom, and who did wear the same shirt twice. And I'm greeted by the stench of shoddily implemented networking, with yellow unshielded Cat 4 being a telltale sign. Officially I'm not supposed to be here, and I have no clue about the network setup. So I ask. Me, so, what's the password to get into the system? SECB, it's company 123. We all have that because IT firms said it's easier to maintain and remember. I temporarily lose a bit of mental stability. What in the ever-loving fornication-related swear word has happened here? How long would I get incarcerated for setting fire to that company? I smile and tell them that might not be the best practice, but that's not what I am here for. My first patient is the lost network drive mapping. I compare the network shares with the other computers and sure, it isn't there. Getting the IP for the drive from another office PC, I quickly enter the usual //192.168.uvw.xyz and voila, I'm in. No password prompt, no other security. All data lies in front of me, and I map the requested drive. A slight hunch overcomes me, and I ask to test something on a user PC. Those are computers purely destined to write job applications and train things, and thus should not have admin rights to GDPR-related data, like personal and medical information of the other participants, or financial contracts. But a quick IP entry. And they had full access. Cue mental instability number 2. However, that's far beyond my pay grade. I'm here unofficially and technically not even allowed to touch the systems. I map the drive, tell them what I've found and teach them how to access the drive if it doesn't appear. Kudos to them, they take notes and seem really eager to learn on how to not call the IT firm. Up next, patient mail awaits. I get a piece of paper with some login data, and a please enter this in Outlook. Greetings $boss. As SECB is new in the company, she doesn't have her own user account yet, and they cannot create accounts without calling IT firm, as the admin account is locked off. They state, until I try 123 company as admin password and get in. I'm impressed by the amount of security, imagine the hackerman.gif here, and create the user account. As I later got to know, IT firm claimed they did the creation of that user account through a remote terminal themselves. Sadly, the mail account she got wasn't even activated yet, just submitted to IT firm for creation, so there's nothing I could do except set up her working environment, office, access to network shares and such. I had to note that they store all their emails locally, as the IT firm set up everything without redundancy, as POP3 receiving and deleting the mail off the server. Nonetheless, issue number 3. The 5-year printer. IT firm has pressed them to buy a new printer/copying machine for years, with a service contract maintained by them additionally to the €24,000 hardware service contract without hardware cost. So they don't want to, or can't, connect the printer to the third of the 3 secretary PCs, as, and I have seen the writing from them, Windows does not support network printer access from more than 2 computers. I smell capital bull excrements. Under Windows, it's the same as manually mapping a network drive. Find the network IP and add the printer per direct IP connect, done. As with the network drive, I quickly taught them how to access network printers via IP. Done, happy 3 secretaries. My appointments have been moved to Fridays, as that's the boss's day off, and I got to leave with some very fresh fancy bank notes, and a renewed hatred for IT firm. However, end of this year the contract they have is running out, and I've been encouraged by the still very good contacts to the employees to apply. With the hint of please burn the entire IT down and replace it with something proper, unlike the 200 meters of Cat4 stapled to the ceiling to reach a different office in the building. Even after several bad eggs, like the 5-year camera case, customer claiming someone breaks in every day to steal her cheese and toilet paper, I still love working with end users. Most are very grateful to be treated with respect, and some even take some time out of their day years after to thank me or send me information they found interesting. My favorite story still is the old lady calling me to proudly tell me that she managed to teach her grandson something about computers. I taught her to use WPS before, so there's no password sharing, and that's what she taught her grandson, who kept asking for the Wi-Fi password. Some coworkers just want to watch the board burn. I used to work at a store that sold, bought and repaired arcade machines. They also sold game room furniture and other related decor for a man cave. My boss and my coworker come to me with a 60-in-1 arcade game mainboard that has a fairly obvious, shall we say, thermal failure of a transistor-looking thing, possibly a voltage regulator, maybe? They want me to try and fix it. This board runs on a low voltage, it uses the JAMA connector, so it has a 5-volt and a 12-volt input. The 2 biggest chips on the board do not have heat sinks on them, so they're probably not super powerful by today's standards, but you don't need much CPU power to run Pac-Man or Galaga. For those of you who aren't familiar with component-level electronics, i.e., the actual chips and transistors on a board, it's not that common for a circuit at that voltage and drawing little current to charbroil itself unless you wire it wrong or there's a massive power surge. So I asked him straight up, "Are you sure the machine was wired right?" He said maybe we could double-check the wiring later. I scrutinized the board further to figure out what the damage is. Good news, no other parts or board traces have any visible damage, and the transistor-looking thing looks like it is relatively easy to replace, despite being surface-mounted. Bad news, the part number on the transistor-looking thing is charred beyond recognition, so I can't look up a datasheet to find out whether it was a voltage regulator or a transistor. Oh well, nothing a little circuit tracing can't fix. Wrong. This is one of those multi-layered boards. To be fair, there are actual advantages when it comes to noise suppression, impedance matching, heat sinking and interference immunity. However, it made tracing the circuit impossible, as the traces going to the transistor-looking thing go to plated holes, aka vias, that do not come out the other side, meaning they lead to a trace on an inner layer of the board. I tried holding the board up to a light to see if the board was translucent enough to allow me to see the traces, but no such luck. Clearly a schematic would be essential to even replace the obviously blown part, much less troubleshoot one that physically looks fine. I scour the internet for nearly an hour, trying to find a schematic, or at least some insight of what the actual function of the blown part was. Sadly, it was not to be. I couldn't even find user-to-user discussion saying that part 10 is a voltage regulator. I just measured it on my working one or any user groups trying to troubleshoot these things. Of course, we didn't have a working machine with that kind of board in it to measure the output of the part. We didn't even have a non-working machine with that board in it where the board itself is okay. No, they weren't all fried by the same guy. So, I explained that my only real way of knowing what that part did was to measure a board that was at least able to boot up. Didn't matter if it was in a machine with a working monitor as long as it booted up. I mentioned that once we have an at least partially working specimen, I may be able to fix the board if you're willing to keep it for now. They hang on to it. Fast forward about a week, and I'm working on a pinball machine. It had a problem with the display's power supply, which in this machine there was a separate board just for that. The power supply for everything else was spread out between the transformer itself on the bottom of the chassis, and the solenoid driver board/power supply board in the back box. I thought I had the display power supply fixed, but I hadn't measured the voltages yet. I realize I don't have my multimeter with me, so I ask my coworker who's just playing with his phone to go fetch it. He did put down his phone, but instead, he comes up to the machine, and then picks up the cable to try and attach it to the display. I say, well, I haven't checked that the voltages are right yet, and he said, well, if they're right, the display comes on, and if they're wrong, it doesn't. I tell him no, if they're too high, it could burn up the display. Like that other board? He says we didn't wire up this machine, the wires are in the right place already. I walk away to go get my multimeter, but the guy is proceeding to plug in the display. I try to explain I fixed this board, but I'm trying to check my own work. I know you didn't touch the wiring, that's not the problem. I'm trying to make sure I did this power supply correctly. Don't risk the display to save a minute. I had kept my voice flat and calm, but he didn't seem to notice at all. He was like, dude, why are you freaking out despite me not raising my voice? Funny, I didn't feel angry until after he said that. While he wasn't looking, I pulled the main fuse out of the machine so he literally can't turn it on. It didn't have a user-removable IEC power cord, or I would have just taken it with me instead when I went to grab my multimeter. My boss was not there that day, nor was there anyone else of authority on site that I could go grab. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken over by pulling the fuse. I would have gone to get my boss, ASAP, and explained that he wouldn't let me test the power supply first before connecting the very expensive display to it. I definitely reported this to my boss via text. I would have used email, but the boss's computer was the store's only computer, and it was perpetually logged into the boss's email with no password protection. Therefore, my coworker could have easily seen it to delete it or confront me about it. One voltage was just missing because I had missed something during repair, but that wouldn't have damaged anything, of course. Checking the voltage doesn't harm anything or take long enough to be worth risking expensive parts by not checking it first. There were other times that he basically tried to take over the entire project if I so much as asked him where a tool was that I saw him using 5 minutes ago. I had to make it less obvious which machine I was working on by either opening up a random one, approaching him where he can't see which one I have open, or closing up the machine I'm fixing before trying to talk to him. This pattern continued even after the boss had been back to the store, so I guess my coworker just didn't listen to him or something.